विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदम् विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यदृष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन क्लैव्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यम् यत्रोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं संख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन इषुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हावरिसूदन गुरून् हत्वामि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्ष्यमपीह लोके हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रतिघ्नान् न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयः यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः ते स्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यात् निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम् न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनुद्या यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणाम् अवाप्य भूमावसपत्नवृद्धम् राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यम् सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा ऋषिकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तपः न योत्स्य इति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः तमुवाच ऋषिकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासूनगतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पण्डिताः.
There should be another book there. Please get it. Gita book, any book, please pick it up. There is one in English and
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
Ashocyan Anvashochah means Anushochitavan. Anu Ashochah means you are grieving after that which should not be grieved. And what does that look like? Te mriyante mat nimittam. They are going to die because of me. Aham taihi vina bhutah kim karishyami. So without, bereft of them, what will I do? Rajya sukhadina, with the kingdom, with Rajya and Sukha. How can I be happy without them, etc. This codependent sorrow which we talked about earlier, this is what is pointed out. And then, Bhagavan mentions Tvam prajnavadam prajnavatam buddhimatam vadam cha vachanani cha bhashase tad etad maudhyam pandityam cha viruddham atmani darshayasi unmattah eva iti abhiprayah. So even though you are in this codependent, entangled mess of relationships, what are you doing? You are coming across as a pandit. Somehow you manage to come across as a pandit, and simultaneously you are exhibiting what? Maudhyam. What is Maudhyam? Moodhasya bhava. Maudhya. Moodha, the nature of the moodha is Maudhya, moodhaness. What is moodhaness? Delusion. Yeah, Maudhyam is delusion. So you are behaving like one deluded and one highly, and intelligent and highly erudite. And you are showing these two symptoms alarmingly at the same time. And the only other case where it has been recorded is unmattaha, when someone is mad. They laugh and cry at the same time. They scream and they are calm. Suddenly they go all quiet. And then suddenly they yell. And then, or they will just pronounce dire prophecies with a very straight face or while smiling. They may be smiling and they may be saying at the same time, I wonder what it would be like to just, stab you. This is what it is. So this is what is called Maudhyam and Pandityam, unfolding side by side simultaneously. Oh Arjuna, you are making me a little alarmed. Unmattaha iva, like even one who is a madman. You are doing like this. Viruddha means these contradictory, traits. These both are contradictory. You can either be erudite or you can be, totally a moodha. But then this Maudhyam and Pandityam, living in the same body, mind, sense complex, Viruddham, these contrary traits, Darshayasi, you exhibit Unmattaha iva, like even a madman. This is the first line. Then, Yasma, because Gatasun Gatapranan Mritan Agatasun Agatapranan Jivitascha Na Anushocanti Panditaha Atmagyaha. So there is only two categories in the world. What are they? Atma and Anatma generally. Here out of the Jagat he has made two slightly different categories. One is from which the prana has departed, which means what? Dead as a doorknob. And then the other category by the same token is don't say living, that you have to go with the flow. No, translate. Yeah, that's how we have to think. We have to think like them to understand what they are saying here. They means Vyasa and Shankara together. So what Bhagavan is saying, you have to think like that. So if I say, first category is that from which the breath has departed, then what should be the second category? That from which the breath has not departed or yet to depart, even nicely put. That from which the breath has yet to depart. Agata, Nirgataha, Asavaha, Yasmat. That from which the Asava, Asu is breath, that from which the breath has departed. Here he uses the word, instead of Asu, he uses the word Prana, same thing. That from which the Prana is yet to depart, that from which the Prana has said bye-bye. So these are the two categories of people. In other words, dead and, don't say living, not yet dead. This is Bhagavan's view of the universe. Dead, not yet dead. Those who by His grace, those whose pranas has not come to an end and those whose prana has come to an end. Only two categories. So this is a no-brainer. And with regard to that which has ended, what is there to grieve about if you are a Pandita? It's gone. It's not, if you start crying, it's not going to bring it back. Prana is is not indecisive. It's a very decisive fellow. When he goes. Correct? Yeah. And if you do CPR and he comes back, that means he wasn't yet fully gone. He was just napping. That's once he goes, he goes. So that is Gata. And then Nirgataha, Prana. The Prana is Nirgata from which? That is, then supposing the Prana is still there, then also there is no point in grieving because Prana comes and goes. Going and coming is the nature of Prana. Prana is living up to its own nature. So why the Pandits don't grieve here? So what is a Pandit is described next. So Panda, he first says Atmajnaha. It's not a scholar of the Vedas because that is also how it is used generally. We are not talking of the scholar of the Vedas. What are we talking about? Atmajnaha. Yes. How do we know it is the knowers of the self? Jna. Yeah. That we had a little mini thesis about Jaha, Jnaha, all these things earlier. And so Atmajnaha, Atmajnaha, Ramaha Ramo, Ramaha, Atmajnaha. So the Atmajnaha, the knowers of the Atma, the one who have the self-knowledge, they do not grieve, and then he describes the word Pandit now. Pandaha, Atmavishayaha, Panda means, the topic of the self is called Panda. Panda Atmavishaya Buddhihi Yesham Te Panditaha. So those who have this topic with them, which is the topic of self-knowledge, meaning those who have self-knowledge are called Panda. And he quotes from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the third Brahmana, the fifth chapter, Pandityam Nirvidya. Pandityam Nirvidya means, it's like the people who, having found out about Brahman, it's describing the knowers of Brahman as the one who have Pandityam, Panda. And what do? They become meditative, they become quiet, it says over there. So it's like they don't see the need to engage with each and every aspect of the world. So that is the section from which this has been taken. So he gives that to buttress his argument that Panda is the one who has Atma Jnanam. Paramarthata tu nityan ashocyan anushocasi ataha moodhaha asi iti abhiprayah. Slightly harsh conclusion here. And ataha moodhaha asi, because paramarthata tu nityan ashocyan, because from the standpoint of the absolute paramarthika reality, what is happening here from the standpoint of the paramarthika reality, nothing dies, nothing is born, and so you keep on grieving. That means even though you are exhibiting dual behavior patterns, what are they? Maudhyam and Pandityam. What are you really? A Moodha. You are not a Pandit, in other words. Prajnavadamscha bhashase is a sarcastic way of saying you are really a Murkha, a Moodha here. You are really deluded, but pretending to be a Pandita. You are all mixed up. And so this is what it is. Kutahte ashocyaha yato nityaha. So how come these people, Bhishma, Drona and all are ashocya? Ashocya means not worthy of grief. How come? Because they are nitya, they are eternal, they are always there. What do you mean they are always there? So the fight will continue. It is like now if you go to Kurukshetra, they are still fighting, they were fighting before, they are always there. Nityaha. No, not like that. Paramartha drishtya nityaha. Paramarthikena ekvachanam deha, dehavashat, and dehena, from the standpoint of Paramarthika, there is only one Atma, and that is not born or does not die. And from the standpoint of the Upadhi Vashat, Upadhi Vashena, Bahuvachanam. So we say all these, ye, ime, Janaha, all these, when we say all these people, when we say that, what happens? We are referring not to the Atma but to the bodies. So from the standpoint of the bodies, Upadhis, there are many. You can say Bahuvachanam. Bahuvachanam means plural, you can use. But from the standpoint of the Paramarthika reality, Atma is one. And to illustrate that, the next verse comes. Natvevahanjatu nasam
Natvevaham jatu nasam
Natvanneme janadhipaha
Natvam neme janadhipaha
Na chaiva na bhavishyamaha
Na chaiva na bhavishyamaha
Sarve vayamatah param
Sarve vayamatah param.
Yeah. So, these are all a very interesting set of double negatives, and we'll see what this means first. Natu eva aham na asam. There was never a time when I was not. What? There was never a time when I was not. Meaning what? I was always there. Well, that's who is talking now? Bhagavan. So for Bhagavan to say that, it's not a problem, correct? Bhagavan is of course there all the time. It's not that Bhagavan is, comes and goes. Bhagavan is there all the time. And so therefore he also amends it by saying, Natvam. You also were there all the time. There was not a single moment where you were also not. Na ime janadhipaha. Neither all these kings. Jananam pati janadhipaha. See, another one. So, Janan Pati, the protector of the people, the kings. So many kings are there here. Janan Pati Janadhipaha. And so, Janadhipaha. And so here, there are so many kings. What about them? Not indeed was there a time when they were not either. Meaning what? I was always there, you were always there, and they were also always there. Oh, this is confusing now. And then what? Furthermore, na chaiva na bhavishyamaha. They will ataf param. Ataf param means, param, don't look for some meaning like, paravidya and all that. That's not ultimate. Ataf param means from now, this point onwards, means in the future. There never will be a time where we will not be. Nacha eva bhavishyamaha. Who? Sarve. Vayam. All of us. So there was never a time that I was never not there. There was never a time that you were not there. Not even all these kings in the battlefield. What's more, kincha, furthermore, there is never going to be a time that we will not be from this point onwards. Meaning what? All of us are always there. Ayyo. This again is seen from the standpoint of Atma. He is now describing why there is no need for grief. Because grief is what? Grief is centered on endings. That's what he is pointing out. Bhagavan is pointing out that grief is centered on endings. That something is going to come to an end causes sorrow. But then this is a radically new understanding. And it could be even taken mistakenly, and it has been, that Bhagavan Krishna is justifying the war and manipulating Arjuna to do his bidding by saying that these people were always there. They will continue to be there, meaning you go do your little business of killing, people here and there, and nothing will happen to them. It's like the serial killer's defense. I am an akarta. How can I kill Atma? Atma is Nitya, so I didn't kill anybody because they are all Atma. So this has, this comes on the borderline of that place where it looks like Bhagavan Krishna is justifying the war. He is not justifying the war. His main concern is not the war. Bhagavan Krishna is not a bloodthirsty person. He has no motive here. Whether the war takes place or not, he could care less. He does have a motive. What is his motive? To teach Arjuna. That is his motive. Because Arjuna presents himself, supplicates himself, surrenders to him as a student, as a shishya, as a disciple. And what does he say? Yat shreyah syat nishchitam bruhi. What is bru? To tell. Bruhi means the he. Bhagavan Krishna is a he. Bruhi is imperative mood, okay? Yeah. It's not like you have to change it to brushi. No. Bruhi means imperative mood. Yeah. Like vidhi. No. You must know. You have to know now. With plus he. Vidhi. Bruhi. Imperative mood. Yat shreyah syat. That which is the most exalted thing you can give me. That which is the most exalted. Nishchitam. Not like this is exalted right now. Because you're thirsty right now. A cool drink is exalted. Later you'll be hungry. And a meal will be exalted. No. That which is exalted at all times. Nishchitam. Without any doubt. Tanme bruhi. That one you please teach me. This is what he had asked for. And since he had asked for that, it is Arjuna. Arjuna has exhibited a sincerity and given into Krishna's hand all the power to teach him. And if Krishna wanted to manipulate, he would not have used all this highfalutin language. He would have said, okay, the shreyas for you is now to fight. Go fight. He doesn't need any kind of artifice here. He doesn't need that. He could have straight away said, get up, go fight. That is your duty right now. That is the best thing for you. And Arjuna would have obliged. But since he said, what is the best thing for you? What best thing for me, please teach me. The onus is now on Bhagavan Krishna to teach him the best thing. And we saw earlier that he says, Atma Jnanan Anyatra. Atma Jnanan Anyatra. Other than Atma Jnanam, this glub situation, he will not come out. Drowning in the ocean, Shoka Sagare, in the ocean of his own tears. He is not going to come out. So, Bhagavan goes into a very philosophical space. Highfalutin Vedanta talk. Very, very cryptic. There was never a time that I wasn't, and you weren't either. Neither these kings, nor their horses, nor their elephants, including Ashwatthama. They were all there before, and they will continue to be there hereafter. Even if you think you're going to kill them, they're not going to die. What does this mean? He has switched over to the order of reality called Paramarthika. From which standpoint, all that is here is one whole, complete, without a second. And so, this is all Tvam Pada Vichara. The you that you think is confined to this body, mind, sense complex is just a process of maudhyam, delusion, whereby you have individuated yourself from the whole. But really speaking, if you take away the body, mind, sense complex, what remains is the Atma. And Atma is there all the time. And so this is what he says. It's not to make Arjuna fight, but this is from the standpoint of there. He launches straight away into what is called Sankhya Buddhi, because he said there are two kinds of ways to do this. One is the preparation, one is the knowledge itself. And so first he tries the knowledge itself. So he tries it on Arjuna and goes into high philosophy of the Atma. Let us look at the Bhashya, what it says. Dehaha asya, that was the next one. Natu eva jatu, jatu means kadachit, at any time. Aham na asam, kintu asam eva atiteshu, dehotpatti vinasheshu nityam. Deha utpatti vinasheshu nityam, eva aham asam iti abhiprayah. So, Shankara decodes it for us. So, natu eva, there was never a time when I was not, means I was there all the time regardless of the various bodies that I have inhabited. And then tatha, in the same manner, natvam na asihi, there was never a time that you were not. That means what? Kintu, but asihi eva, you were always there. That means you were always there. He is just decoding for us. Tatha na ime janadhipaha, the same thing with these kings. Na asan, na asan means what? Kintu asan eva, they were actually there. It's not that they were not there, that means what? They were actually there. Tatha nacha eva, if he had said nacha eva bhavishyamaha, that means we will not be there. But what does he say? Nacha eva na bhavishyamaha. They will, ataha param, from this point on, we will not ever not be there, meaning we will always be there. So he translates this properly. Kintu bhavishyamo eva, bhavishyamaha eva, because we will be there indeed. Sarve vayam ataha. Ataha means here, from hereafter he says, asmat deha vinashat. So from the standpoint of the body falling down, param uttara kale, afterwards api, trishu api kaleshu, in all three periods of time, don't say sleeper, waker, dreamer, past, present, future. In trishu kaleshu, nityaha atmasvarupena nityaha iti arthaha. So we are, all of us are always eternal. Here we can use the word because he uses the word nitya. Nitya means what? That which never comes to an end. That which always is in the same way. And both slowly he puts both the definitions of Sat here. What are the two definitions of Sat? That which is not negated, abhaditam Sat. Second definition of the word Sat? Trikaleshu tishtati, that which is the same in all periods of time. And then abhaditam, non-negatable. Okay? These are the two definitions of Sat. So now here, what is this? He sneaks in both the definitions under the rubric Nitya, because what is Nityam is Satyam and what is Satyam is Nityam. So therefore, where does he do the first one? The first one, abhaditam, he says there was never a time that we were not. He translates as you were always there, we were always there, they were always there, I was always there. So that is the thing he says. Never is a time that I wasn't there. So the double negative means it is non-negatable. So the Shruti, the verse also makes it non-negatable, because double negative makes one positive. You can never negate the Atma. So Abadhitam is there in the beauty of this verse. And then the other one, Trishu Kaleshu Trikaleti Tishtati iti Sat. Trikaleshu Tishtati iti Sat means that which is there in all three periods of time, he sneaks in very overtly, by just explaining the word Ataha. Where is Ataha? Vayam Ataha. The second last word. Before Param, what is there? Ataha. Ataha means thereafter, but here it doesn't mean, he gives a different meaning. Thereafter means what? In all three periods of time. Past, present and future, Nityaha, that we are all Vayam, we all are always there. How are we there? In the form of the Atma. How many Atmas are there? One. And here he says, how many people has he referred to? I, you and all these kings. Three sets of people have been addressed here. How can you say they are all one? Because here is where he says, Deha Bheda Anuvritya Bahuvachanam. So how can you say you, me, they? He says we are only counting the heads from the standpoint of Deha Bheda, from standpoint of one body ending and another body beginning. So from the standpoint of counting of the bodies, you have to use plural. You cannot say all these kings, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. And what happened to him? He had a big fall. All the king, horse, king, men, you cannot say. You have to say kings, horses, kings, men. Correct? Here also on the battlefield there are kings, horses and kings, men. And kings, people, without the G. And so all these people are there. So when you count the bodies, you are counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, Bahuvachanam. What is Bahuvachanam? Many, plural. And then, so they, Deha Drishtya, from the standpoint of the bodies, you have to say many. You are constrained to say many because they are visible. If you pinch them, they will each one say ow, ow, ow in different scales, they will say. And then, but however he says, na atma bheda abhiprayena, not from the standpoint of the atma. Deha bheda, from the standpoint of the body, the differences in the body, which are the upadhi vashat, bahuvachanam. Natu atma vritya, not from the standpoint of the atma. Why? Because there is no bheda in the atma. Atma is abheda. Abheda means without a second, there is no difference. And what about half an atma? You can't split it into half an atma. It would be nice, but you can't do that. And so, and then he says, but how atma is nitya? How come it is nitya? Tatra katham iva nityah atma iti drishtantam aha. Drishtantam means, so how to understand this? That from one standpoint it is many, and from the another standpoint it is one. And then why does that standpoint matter than this standpoint? Because this is the real standpoint. This is the real stand. Others are just points. They are just points of reference. This is our stand. This is the stand of the Shruti, that there is only one Atma. So really, this is the nature of this Atma. But how do I understand this? Dehi nosmin yatha dehe.
Dehinosmin yatha dehe.
Kaumarai yauvananjara.
Kaumaram yauvananjara.
Tatha dehantara praptihi.
Tatha dehantara praptihi.
Dhirastatra namuhyati.
Dhirasatra namuhyati.
Yeah. Dehin. Dehin means, Deha means what? Yeah, the one who is in the body is called Dehin. Yeah, you just remember it that way, very easy. Dehin, one who is in the body. Vedantin, one who is in Vedanta. Yeah. One who is out of Vedanta is Vedanta out. New pratyaya. So, Dehin means the one who is endowed with a body. So the body is actually a plus because it makes me talk, walk and then want to eat. So you see, this is a great plus. This is wonderful. Because of the body I can move around, I can talk, I can walk, I can eat, I can sleep, I can do so many things. If I was just hanging out like the Atma, I mean you can't even hang out, it is all pervasive. So the Deha is good because it gives me a certain leverage. Yeah, I can do things. So that is, I can have fun because the body is there, I can go places and pretend to be finite, it's all fun. So the one who is endowed with a body is called Dehin. Dehinaha, plural. Dehinaha, asmin dehe. Dehinaha, just like the indweller of the body, the one who is endowed with a body, this Atma or this Jiva who is called Dehin, Yatha Dehe, just as in the body. Dehinaha, here means the one who is endowed with a body. So anyone who has a body, the Jiva. Yatha, just as. This Dehi passes through various stages in the body. What kind of stages? Kaumaram. Kaumaram is, childhood. From Kumaraha, child. Kaumaram, childhood. Yauvanam, from Yunaha, youth. Yunaha, youth. And then geriatry, jara. So these are the three stages, that everybody passes through, correct? And it's the same fellow going through the various states, right? It's not that a different individual went through childhood and a different individual went through youth and someone else is experiencing old age. It's the same awareness with regard, which is identified with a particular body mind sense complex that says, oh, one by one the limbs are dropping away. I heard the old men say, one by one we drop away by the waters. Yeah, Yeats poetry, this is what he wrote. So this is the whole thing, So Kaumaram, Yauvanam, Jara, this, and he chooses these. Bhagavan chooses these because they are universal experiences just like the other three states. What are they? Sleep, dream, yeah. Right. These are the three states, and these are also very used in the Vedanta Shastra because they are universal. Universal what? Experiences. Don't ever say Vedanta doesn't deal with experience. This is a very good, experience of Vedanta dealing with experience. Yeah, it's all about experience, but not really about experience. It is about seeing the truth, the content of the experiencer, the nature of the experiencer. The experience becomes important because I can delineate the experiencer as the sakshi, that is sakshi, witness of all the experiences. So here these threefold experiences, have you gone through or not? Well, I don't know. Because jara, I haven't experienced jara. Kaumaram, Yauvanam, okay, maybe I have. Jara, I haven't experienced. All right, don't worry, just wait for some time. Then come to class after you have experienced jara. Okay, I will come if I remember. So, So, just as Kaumaram and Yauvanam, same thing. If you have experienced Kaumaram and Yauvanam, Jara also will be the same. So, what is this? The changing experiences of various states within the same body is a universal experience. Changing states of the same deity, yatha, just as in the same body the person experiences what? Kaumaram, Yauvanam and Jara, these three states. Tatha, in the same manner, Dehantara Praptihi, means after the body goes, what happens? Another body is gained. Yes, very easily, just like weight. Another body is gained. Yeah, because when one is putting on weight, you don't know that you are putting on weight. Only afterwards one is shocked. Oh my God! Oh no, I have put on weight. Nobody says I'm putting on weight. Shatru Pratyaya doesn't come there. Present participle doesn't come there. It's always, past passive. Oh, how did this happen? One doesn't even know. Effortlessly, one puts on weight, especially in the winter, because the body has its own intelligence, yeah, but which is askance with the intentionality of the mind. The mind says, don't pig out in the holidays, stay trim. But then the body says, oh no, it's getting cold. Oh no, maybe they don't have a sweater for me. And I have evolved too much to grow fur, because animals grow fur. And if you see the dog and the cat, they become nice and fluffy and soft in the winter. And in the summer, the house is a nightmare because all that, the sweater, they shed. Yes. You can't call it bedding anymore. It is shedding, Yeah, you sleep on shedding. If you have a pet, that's all it is. And so therefore, this is all the body's intelligence. So the body freaks out. It's getting cold outside. And the eyes also are in cahoots with the body. And they see the snow and they say, oh no, here is snow. And the body decides, if I cannot grow fur, I can just grow, period. Yes. I will delay the metabolism. I will store everything for a wintry day. Correct? So, how effortlessly it is. The effort comes later, because then you have to go work out and do all these things. Oh, how did this happen? The effort comes later. To shed the body, that's much more effort than to take on another body, whether in this life or in this winter or in another life. It is equally effortless. You don't even know how you slipped out of this body, Bhagavan Krishna says, and then how you found yourself being slapped by a kind-faced doctor upside down. How this happened. And then the earlier body was useless, of course, because it was all old and dilapidated, but nonetheless it knew a lot of things, useless things, but nonetheless it knew things. And here this body and this mind doesn't know even who is the mother. Looking for some familiar face, eyes are still blurry and everything is whatever, as when suction is being performed through the nose and the ears and everything, and somebody is slapping the behind, and then somebody is putting it in a crib, and then this child is crying because, and wonders what happened. The shock is there, but the shock is also afterwards. Be effortlessly, because it's all, Lord Yama is an excellent, assembly line man. I mean, he knows exactly where to send this jiva. How to fit this big ego into a tiny little body. He knows. He doesn't have any problems. That's how they got the idea of that, what's that? Aladdin. And what comes out? Jinn. We said jinn. Jinn comes out. And the genie comes out, How did this big genie fit into the small lamp? How did this big ego fit into this tiny little body? How do you know the child has a big ego? Wait for it to get hungry. Let it cry its lungs out, such small lungs for such a big voice. And when it gets angry also. These little children, when they get angry, you should see. You should see. They frown, they get upset, and they just all get red, and they clench their fists, and they biff the air, and they do all kinds of things. This huge ego. Why huge? Because it's been putting on weight for many lifetimes. Has been stuffed into yet one other tiny body effortlessly. You don't have to make any effort. How will I go from this body to the next? What is the GPS to the next body? No, it's all taken care of. You're paid. Your way forward is paid. Paid for by what? Your own karma. Your own karma pays the way, paves the way. Both. And what happens? Before you know it, you're there. Tatha deham prapti. So life is not just these 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, 100 years, however long one may live. And in that period, what happens? One starts feeling like justice has not been served. All the baddies are getting away with their deeds. The baddies are the ones who get all the goodies. And the goodies, like myself, the person's thinking, don't get anything. Are left high and dry. Not fair. And people ask me this, wherever I go, people ask me this. How come I'm so good? Who told you are good? No, no. Who gave you a certificate? Some dharma certificate you got? Who gave? No, I gave it to myself. All right. Next. No, but I am so good. But then all the good things are happening to the bad people. And if karma is real, then the good things should happen to me. And though not only that, the people who do bad things, they're not getting punished. They're getting away with everything. Yes, in the small little myopic vision of the 100-year lifetime. 100 years is nothing. 100 years is the time which Brahmaji takes to eat 2 peanuts. You know. That's a human 100 years. It's nothing. Nothing at all. I told you the story of Krishna and, Narada. Narada wanted to know from Lord Krishna, what is it that you exactly taught in the Bhagavad Gita? Can you please teach me? Okay, Narada, I'll teach you. I'm a little tired, I'm a little thirsty. Bring me some water. And they were walking on the river bank. And Narada said, oh yes sir, immediately. And Narada goes and he's filling up the water, cleaning it of all the leaves and twigs and filling up the water. The pot is almost full. And then he looks on the other bank. The delightful maiden is also filling up the water. Oh, it's a hot day. A swim across sounds just about now really good. Where does your father and mother live? Where do they live? Let me ask your hand in marriage. And the pot is just left aside right there. Goes, gets married, has 3 children. They're all named ceremonially. And then, he has a business. He has everything. The children grow up, they get married. And, he becomes a grandfather. And still doesn't remember. He's forgotten all about it. Asking for the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. And then what happens? Flood comes to town. And he says, oh, and then, everybody, they all think if we just catch hold of each other, then we will not drown. Famous last words. And the flood is so forceful that even though the whole family is making a human chain and catching hold of each other, the wife and the children get separated, drown and die. And and he is also drowning in his tears and in the flash flood. And he says, so much water everywhere. Water! Oh my God, Krishna asked for water. Then magically, because of it was those times and they could do such things, he comes back and then with very red paste, tomato paste, he goes and collects the water. That pot was still there, you know. And he collects fresh water, takes it to Krishna, and Krishna said, and he can't even look at he gives it like this, can't even look, he's just so ashamed of himself. All this took 25 years. And Krishna scolds him. He said, what is this, Narada? I told you I was thirsty 25 minutes ago, and still the river water is right here, and you have taken so long to bring the water. So, this is celestial time and human time. And here, what is happening here? Here is that by the time Brahmaji, has just 2 peanuts. He's flying on a plane, going somewhere and having 2 peanuts. 100 years is nothing. Just because the baddie did not get punished, as you would have liked him to, or her to, for get the just deeds, don't think that that's over. Not in the Hindu tradition. It's never over. Unless what? Yeah. Unless self-knowledge, one gets hooked on to self-knowledge, pun intended. So, otherwise it's never over. This 1 or 2 lifetimes is nothing for us. And so, one lifetime they got away. Next lifetime also they may get away. It's okay. A day will come and they will not get away. Because all the karmas are piling, stockpiling. There is an arsenal of karma. And one day it's all going to go off like rockets, like the firecrackers in this fellow's life, and it will not stop. Relentlessly it will go off. This also explains why, even though sometimes people are good in this life, they have a lot of suffering, they appear to have a lot of suffering, it's all karma. We don't have to sit and analyze or feel guilty. Thankfully we cannot. Why? Why we cannot feel guilty? We don't know, thankfully. Oh, thank God. All we have to say is that one more karma has got exhausted. One less karma to worry about, because one more has gone. Oh, one sickness, one more has gone. One mosquito bite, a small karma has gone. A big calamity, oh, big karma has cleared. Yippee! This is how we have to do. So here is the effortless cycle of birth, death, and the gain of new bodies. As though it's just like going to the shop and buying a pair of clothes. Even you may agonize over which jeans to buy. But Bhagavan doesn't agonize over which jeans you are going to get in the next lifetime. Genes. Not at all. For Bhagavan it is no problem. Yeah, very easy, effortless. The way is paid for. It's already paved. All you have to do is just inhabit it with grace. That's all it is. So, Tatha Dehantara Praptihi Dhiraha. And who is Dhiraha? Of course, the favorite definition of Adi Shankara is Dhiman. The one, not Dhihi Asya Asti iti Dhiman. No, not the one who has a buddhi. So, Dhira means the one who is Viveki, Vivekin, one who is in Viveka, the one who has been blessed with Viveka, So, for the embodied, let's understand the whole thing. Dehinaha, for the embodied ones, correct? For the embodied one, embodied being, Asmin, in the present body, Asmin Dehe, in the current body, just as childhood, youth, and old age are, and then you have to add in parentheses, are effortlessly what? Experienced, as one experiences, as the embodied one in the current body experiences childhood, youth, and old age, just as In the same way, the embodied one gains the acquisition of another body. Tatha, in the same manner, dehantarasya praptihi, dehantara praptihi. Similarly, the person gets another body. Tatra, in this context, therefore, this being so, tatra doesn't mean always there. There means in this context, this being the case, what happens? न मुह्यति धीरः न शोचति न मोहम आपद्यते. Adi Shankara will say, meaning does not fall into delusions. What is the reason that is cited to not fall into delusion? The reason that is cited to not fall into delusion is that it is just like within the body to go through various states or to get another body, it's all the same. Because Atmanaha avikriyatvat. That means what? Even though the body changes, vikriya means the enactment of the various elements, etc. Modifications, vikriya. So vikriya is happening to what? Deha or the Atma? Deha. Naturally. So the vikriya from childhood, that is why this example is given, because there are various prakriyas and vikriyas that are happening. Operations are taking place, pun intended, on the body. Correct? Yeah, the operation of what? The 5 elements plus scalpel, etc. here and there. So the operation of the 5 elements is aging the body. The operation of the pollution, the atmospheric pollution is causing Jara to come earlier, and the operation of bugs and viruses in the environment is causing the body to fall sick, and the operation of the hormones, etc. within the body are making it go from childhood to youth to old age, etc. Correct? So there are various, the body is subject to various operations, so it has the property of what is called vikriya, vikriyatvam, vikriyata, vikriyaha. So this vikriya is the various kinds of operations. But even in and through these operations, there is a constant one which is the witness of these operations. So that's why the operations that are of universal experience are given first. What is that? Childhood, youth and old age. That's why you can say, when I was a child, I was very shy. Now I can't stop talking. So that means what? That means what? Modification happened. To whom? To whom? The talker or the non-talker? Neither the talker nor the non-talker. The witness of both the talker and the non-talker. This is the idea. Then you can say, when I was young, I had all these skills. Now all gone. Now I can't do anything. Who is saying? The one who is skilled or the unskilled? Neither skilled nor unskilled. The witness of the skilling and the witness of the killing of the skilling. Everything is the one who is witnessing the skills arise and abate is the one who is forever. Nitya is the one that I want. Whenever I say I want this forever, I want this one here. That is the truth of the body-mind sense complex. That which is the witness of the changes in the body. And then the changes are very far-fetched in the sense that they are not just confined to this body. There is a parakaya pravesha. There is an entry into another body. Adi Shankara did that while alive. He took on another body. Speaking of taking on bodies. Because he was very close to losing a debate to a woman. I told you in the morning Mandana Mishra, correct? The parrot. Remember the story here? So then the story goes, he entered the house and had a debate with the householder called Mandana Mishra. And, defeated him. And his wife, who was very, very knowledgeable, her name was Ubhaya Bharati, was the adjudicator of the debate. And she said, how is she going to mediate? Because there's a conflict of interest. One of the contestants is her own husband. And so, lest people protest, she prayed at the Saraswati shrine and asked Saraswati to dispatch from wherever she was, from Brahmaloka, I suppose, yeah, two celestial garlands she ordered and paid for them online. And then immediately two garlands came, were couriered, with Saraswati's swan. The swans brought the two garlands, and they had Vichitra flowers, unique flowers, beautiful flowers. They were so beautiful. And then she garlanded Adi Shankara, and she garlanded her husband and said, whichever garland wilts first is the one who has lost the debate. How do you know which one will? Because if you're getting heated up in the debate and getting all flustered, the body heat is going to make the garland wilt. And Mandana Mishra looked like a wilted salad by the end of the first round and was declared the loser. And then, as was the custom, the loser has to become the student of the winner. This is how it is. They have to fall at the feet and say, I have lost, you have won, I am your student, teach me, take me wherever you want. And then, so he did that, and he was surprised because Ubhaya Bharati did not fall at Adi Shankara's feet. And he kept expecting that because he looked at the husband and wife as one team. And she said, no, just because you won over him doesn't mean that you won over me. You have to have next week, same time. You're going to debate with me. And then, Adi Shankara said yes, because how can he say no? But then upon reflection, he knew what she was going to ask. The only thing she could ask that he could not know was, what is it like to be married? Because he had never had that experience. He didn't know anything about marriage or anything like that. So then he said, okay, now I'm going to fix what to do. Then he saw a death procession of a extremely licentious king who had 300 wives, a full harem, chock filled with women. And then, he told his student, a disciple, to guard his body from bugs and, all these things, because he wanted it back later on. And so he left the body and went back into the body of the newly departed king. And of course the harem is very happy. And so he lived with the harem for 1 month and got all kinds of experiences and got all kinds of knowledge that he didn't have before. And then came back to his body because he postponed the debate. He said, I need some time. So he postponed the debate, came back to his body. So the king died a second time. And then what? And then he presented himself at the debate, and then she said, I don't want to debate any longer because I just want, I was not trying to test you. I wanted the glory of being defeated by you in my own right, she said. Yeah. So she loses the debate to him and becomes his disciple also. And in those days, women were not disciples, women were not, sannyasa was not really thought of for women, even though in the Veda, the sannyasa is given, is there. We see the Gargi and all these things, and we see the twofold path for women. Either after Gurukula, they could get, just like men, after Gurukula, they could get married, or they could go and become what is called Brahmavadinis. They could just go and talk about Brahman and, live like a sannyasi. But by the time Adi Shankara came around, the religion was very patriarchal. So he, and she said, no, you cannot just leave me here. And he said, I think I know that I cannot leave you here, so you have to come with us. So she came and she listened to all the classes, she cooked and everything, and one time, there are beautiful stories about her, and one time there was no food, no roots, nothing. She had just a few grains of rice. And she cried on the grains of rice because the tears fell on the grains of rice, and Adi Shankara could not handle it. He was so compassionate that he made, he made the pot fill up with rice. The purity of her tears made the pot filled up with rice. and then he composed the Annapurneshwari Stotra at that time. So there are lots of things. And then finally they go to some place, I think Kashmir. And she says, time for me has come to not follow you anymore. And he says, I think you are right. So he renames her Sharada, and he says that you just stay here and take care of the Pitha as a goddess. So that is the story of the goddess Sharada, according to certain annals. And so, anyway, so very beautiful, to think about. So Shankara had, while living, he had this effortless going and changing bodies, and so this is how it is, because the same Dehi, the one who is inhabiting this body, is the same one that's going to inhabit the next body. Just like the same entity that's having the experience of childhood is going to have the experience of old age. Bhashya, you see? Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamedavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. We will not have the 6 o'clock class today. You can please write there and also on Adobe. So we will take the evening off. Yeah.
When I first started being exposed to all this, I think the idea I had was that, life is difficult and there's suffering, and I want to get to the point where I don't have to come back. And now I got with you in this last one, and it's like, well, maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is just that the whole thing is inevitable, and just being neutral about it.
It's a good place to be. Yeah. Because, not wanting to come back is a lofty plan, no doubt. But the thing is, if one is obsessed about it, that's not a good thing either.
Yeah.
Be relaxed. What's the worst thing that happens if you come back? You'll learn Vedanta at an early age. Then you'll pick it up. That's all. Yeah, no problem. It's all okay. That's good to not have the pressure to not come back. And don't have the pressure to come back either. Oh. Okay. Tomorrow there is Kathopanishad, yes. Something new here.